I stare at the entrance of Ridgewood Nursing Home, its brick facade weathered by decades of New England winters. My breath forms small clouds in the February air as I grip the steering wheel, postponing the moment I'll have to face her. Mom, are we going to see Grandma now? My son Eli asks from the back seat, his voice a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. At 7 years old, he's only met his grandmother twice, both times in public places with strained conversations and forced smiles. Yes, sweetheart. Just give me a minute. 8 years ago, I stood in this same parking lot, except I was on the other side of the glass doors, inside wearing a nursing assistant uniform, 19 years old and terrified. I had just told my mother, the facility's head nurse, that I was pregnant. You're throwing away everything, she had said, her voice eerily calm as she arranged medications on a cart in the staff room. Your scholarship, your future, everything your father and I worked for. I can still go to school, Mom. I can defer. Not in my house, she cut me off. I won't watch you ruin your life like my sister did. You have two choices, terminate or leave. I placed my hand on my still flat stomach. Then I'll leave. The memory still stings. I was barely an adult, 3 months pregnant, with only $2,300 in savings. My boyfriend had already made it clear he wanted nothing to do with the baby. Mom. Eli's voice pulls me back to the present. You look sad. I smile into the rearview mirror. I'm okay. Just remembering something. About Grandma? Yeah. I unbuckle my seatbelt. About Grandma. We walk through the sliding doors into the facility where I once worked part-time during high school. The antiseptic smell hits me immediately. That unique blend of cleaning products, institutional food, and medication that marks every nursing home. I approach the reception desk, where a young woman looks up from her computer. I'm here to see Margaret Sullivan. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Are you family? She asks, reaching for the visitor log. I'm her daughter, Jessica Sullivan. The words feel strange in my mouth after so many years. And this is her grandson. Oh. Her eyes widen slightly. Mrs. Sullivan doesn't get many visitors. I'll let her know you're here. As we wait, I kneel down to Eli's level. Remember what we talked about? Grandma might say some not nice things. If she does, it's not your fault, okay? He nods solemnly, his green eyes so like mine searching my face. Is she sick? Not exactly. Her mind is fine. It's just... How do I explain to a 7-year-old that his grandmother chose pride over family? She just needs some help taking care of herself now. The receptionist returns. She's in the day room. Down the hall to your right. I take Eli's hand and walk toward the day room, my heels clicking against the linoleum. I'm dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. Not to impress my mother, I tell myself, but because I came directly from work. From my job as Regional Director of Elder Care Services for a healthcare management company. The irony isn't lost on me. My mother sits in a wheelchair near the window, thinner than I remember. Her once vibrant red hair now completely white and cut short. She doesn't turn when we enter, though I know she's aware of our presence. Hello, Mom, I say, stopping a few feet away. She turns slowly, her eyes moving from me to Eli, then back to me. 8 years have carved deep lines around her mouth and between her eyebrows. So you finally came, she says. No greeting, no acknowledgement of Eli. Typical Margaret Sullivan. This is your grandson, Eli. I place my hands on his shoulders. Eli, this is your grandmother. Hello, Eli says politely, though he presses back against my legs. My mother nods stiffly. You look like your mother did at your age. It's the closest thing to warmth I've heard from her in years. I got your message, I say, referring to the voicemail she left 3 days ago, the first contact in almost 4 years. You said we needed to talk. Not in front of the boy. She gestures toward a volunteer at the door. Linda can watch him in the children's corner. After making sure Eli is settled with some books, I sit in the chair across from my mother. The board is selling Ridgewood, she says without preamble. They're entertaining bids from 3 companies. One will turn it into luxury condos. The other 2 are corporate healthcare chains that will double the rates. I keep my expression neutral. And I can't afford the higher rates. My pension and Social Security barely cover the current costs. She pauses, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. I've been here 5 years, Jessica. All my friends are here. I don't want to be moved to some state facility. The irony of the situation hits me like a physical blow. 8 years ago, I begged her not to make me leave my home. Now she's asking me not to let her lose hers. What exactly are you asking me to do? I know, but I want to hear her say it. She looks out the window again, unable to meet my eyes. I need money. Or I need someone to stop the sale. I don't immediately respond. Instead, I reach into my bag and pull out a business card, placing it on the table between us. It reads, Jessica Sullivan, Regional Director, Horizon Healthcare Management. One of those companies bidding on Ridgewood? That's mine. I stand up. I have a meeting with the board next Tuesday. The shock on her face is almost worth the 8 years of struggle. Almost. We should go, Eli, I call. Grandma needs her rest. My mother's voice stops me. You would punish me like this? Use your position to take away my home. I turn back. I learned from the best, Mom. You kicked me out when I needed you most. Maybe I'll do the same. I pause. Or maybe I won't. You'll find out next week. As I walk away, guiding Eli toward the exit, I feel her eyes on my back. The weight of our history presses down on me, along with the knowledge that I now hold power over the woman who once cast me aside without a second thought. In the car, Eli buckles himself into his booster seat. Grandma seems sad. Yes, I agree, starting the engine. She is. Are we going to help her? I look at my son in the rearview mirror. This beautiful child who was supposedly going to ruin my life, but instead gave me purpose. The child I raised while working full-time and completing my degree. The child who taught me what unconditional love really means. I don't know yet, I answer honestly. But whatever happens, we'll be okay. As we drive away from Ridgewood, my mind is already formulating a plan. Not just for revenge, but for something more complicated. Something that might finally force my mother to see me for who I've become, not who she feared I would be. The first month after my mother kicked me out was a blur of panicked decisions and desperate measures. I had moved in with my best friend Tara, sleeping on her couch while applying for every part-time job that wouldn't strain my increasingly pregnant body. Community college replaced my scholarship to Boston University. My once promising future in healthcare administration seemed to be slipping through my fingers like sand. Now I stand on the 14th floor of the Horizon Healthcare headquarters in downtown Boston, looking out at the city skyline. My office, sleek, modern, with framed degrees on the wall and a photo of Eli on my desk, is a testament to how far I've come. My assistant, Marcus, knocks on the open door. The files you requested on Ridgewood Nursing Home, he says, placing a thick folder on my desk. And Dr. Chan called. He wants to discuss the expansion project when you have time. Thanks. Tell him I'll call back this afternoon. I open the folder and begin studying the financial statements of my mother's nursing home. 8 years ago, when I was at my lowest point, I made a promise to myself. I would build a life so secure that no one could ever make me feel as vulnerable as my mother had. Every decision since then had been calculated. From choosing healthcare administration as my major, practical, lucrative, flexible hours for a single mom, to selecting each job based on advancement potential rather than immediate salary. The numbers in Ridgewood's financial statements tell a familiar story: declining Medicare reimbursements, rising costs, an aging facility requiring costly updates. The board's decision to sell makes perfect business sense. What doesn't make sense is why they're entertaining a bid from a development company that would displace dozens of elderly residents. My phone buzzes with a text from Tara. Eli's doing great at piano. Still coming for dinner tonight. I smile and type back. Wouldn't miss it. Bringing the good wine. Tara and her husband Dave had been my lifeline when I had nothing. They watched Eli when I had night classes, helped me navigate the complexities of applying for assistance programs, and never once made me feel like a burden. They're the family I chose when my blood family abandoned me. A knock at my door interrupts my thoughts. It's Richard Keller, Horizon's CEO. A tall man in his 60s with silver hair and shrewd eyes. Jessica, got a minute? He asks, already settling into the chair across from my desk. Of course. I've been reviewing your proposal for Ridgewood. He taps his fingers on my desk. It's ambitious, Converting a struggling facility into a mixed-use center with both affordable senior housing and premium care options isn't our usual model. It's the right move for that location, I say confidently. The community needs affordable options, but the premium units will subsidize them. Plus, the existing staff is experienced and dedicated. Retention would be high. What I don't say, I know the staff well. I worked alongside them as a teenager. I know which nurses have been there for decades, which aides have special connections with residents, which maintenance workers go above and beyond. There's something else, Richard says, studying me. I ran a background check on all the current residents. Standard procedure. He pauses. Your mother is there. The room feels suddenly colder. Yes. You should have disclosed that. Would it have changed our approach? The financials support my proposal. He sighs. No, but it complicates things. If we win the bid, you'll need to recuse yourself from decisions involving her care. I understand. After he leaves, I stare at the photo of Eli on my desk. He's missing his 2 front teeth in the picture, his smile wide and carefree. Everything I do is for him, to give him the security I never had, to show him that obstacles can be overcome, to teach him that sometimes the people who should love you the most are the ones who let you down. But is that the legacy I want to leave him? That revenge is justified when you've been wronged? I pick up my phone and call a number I rarely use. Dad? It's Jessica. I need to talk to you about Mom. My father's voice sounds older than I remember. Jesse? God, it's good to hear your voice. Are you okay? Is Eli? We're fine, Dad. This is about Mom. Did you know Ridgewood is being sold? His sigh carries years of exhaustion. Yes. She's been calling me daily, panicking about where she'll go. Insurance won't cover a higher-tier facility, and our savings. He trails off. My parents had divorced 3 years after I left home. My father had tried to maintain contact, sending occasional checks and birthday cards to Eli, but our relationship had become distant, strained by his failure to stand up to my mother when it mattered most. I'm involved with one of the companies bidding on Ridgewood. I tell him. I went to see her yesterday. Oh. The single syllable carries a weight of understanding. Is this about getting back at her? The question hangs in the air between us. Is it? 8 years ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now I'm not so sure. I don't know, Dad. Part of me wants her to understand what it feels like to be homeless, to have no control over your own life. But there's another part. The part that remembers she's still your mother. He finishes softly. No, I correct him. The part that knows I'm better than that. The part that wants Eli to see that strength isn't about wielding power over others when you have the chance. That evening, as I help Eli with his homework at Tara's dining table, I watch him carefully forming letters in his notebook. His tongue sticks out slightly when he concentrates, something he's done since he was a toddler. Mom, he says without looking up, is Grandma coming to my birthday party? The question catches me off guard. I don't think so, honey. Grandma and we have some things to work out. He nods as if this makes perfect sense. Like when me and Kevin had a fight at school, and then we had to talk it out in the peace corner? I smile at his simple wisdom. Something like that, but grown-up problems are a little more complicated. But you're super smart, he says with complete confidence. You'll figure it out. Later, after Eli has gone to bed in the guest room that Tara still calls Eli's room, I sit with my best friend on her patio, wine glasses in hand. So you're really going through with this? Tara asks. Buying the nursing home where your mom lives? If the board accepts our bid, I say, swirling the deep red liquid in my glass. We're not the highest offer, but we're the only ones promising to keep it as a care facility and retain the staff. Tara studies me. And what about Margaret? What happens to her? That's what I'm still figuring out, I admit. The petty part of me wants to walk into her room and tell her the rates are doubling, watch the panic on her face and then say, but don't worry, I'll cover it. Unlike you, I don't abandon family. But that's not really you, Tara says. It's not a question. No. I sigh. As satisfying as it would be in the moment, it wouldn't change anything. She'd see herself as the victim, and I'd just be the vindictive daughter. So what will you do? I take a long sip of wine. Something she never expected. Something that will force her to see me, really see me, for the first time in 8 years. The conference room at Ridgewood Nursing Home feels smaller than I remember. 8 years ago, I'd occasionally helped set up for board meetings, placing water pitchers and notepads at each seat, never imagining I'd one day be presenting to this same board. Now, dressed in a navy blue suit that cost more than a month's rent at my first apartment, I stand before the 5 board members with confidence that comes from years of similar presentations. The projection screen behind me displays Horizon Healthcare's logo alongside renderings of a renovated Ridgewood. Our proposal preserves the core mission of Ridgewood while ensuring its financial viability, I explain, clicking to the next slide. The East Wing would be modernized for higher-paying residents, while the current facilities would be updated but remain affordable. No current resident would be displaced or face increased rates for at least 3 years. Martha Phelps, the board chairwoman who has known me since I was a teenager, looks skeptical. And how can Horizon guarantee these rates won't increase after those 3 years? Many of our residents are on fixed incomes. We've included provisions for incremental increases capped at 3% annually after the initial period, I respond. Additionally, we're establishing a resident assistance fund for hardship cases. I don't mention that I've personally committed to funding part of this assistance program. Some things are better left unsaid in a business setting. Board member Robertson leans forward. Jessica, your proposal is considerably less profitable than the development companies offer. Why should we choose Horizon? Because Ridgewood isn't just a property asset, I say firmly. It's a community institution. The development company's plan displaces vulnerable seniors, many of whom have limited options. Our plan preserves Ridgewood's legacy while ensuring its future. What I don't add, and because I know things about Ridgewood that no other bidder does. I know about the time Mr. Abernathy in room 210 went missing, and you found him 8 hours later in the storage closet. I know about the medication errors that were quietly resolved. I know the true condition of the East Wing's plumbing system. After fielding more questions, I conclude my presentation. Thank you for your consideration. I believe our vision for Ridgewood aligns with the values this institution was founded upon. As I gather my materials, Martha approaches me. Jessica, could I have a word privately? She leads me to a small office down the hall. Once the door closes, her professional demeanor softens. I've known you since you were wheeling laundry carts down these corridors, she says, and I knew your mother for years before that. So I have to ask, is this personal for you? I meet her gaze steadily. Everything in business is personal on some level, Martha. You know what I'm asking. Margaret told me you visited her recently. First time in years from what I understand. I take a measured breath. My mother and I have a complicated relationship, but I can separate that from business decisions. Can you? She challenges. Because buying the facility where your estranged mother lives seems quite personal to me. Would you be asking these questions if I were a man? Or would my personal connection be seen as a strength, evidence of my commitment to this community? Martha's expression shifts. Fair point. But the question stands. Then yes, it is personal, I admit. I grew up in these halls. I know what Ridgewood means to this community because it was part of my community. And while my relationship with my mother is strained, my proposal stands on its own merits. She studies me for a long moment, then nods. The board votes next Thursday. I'll let you know our decision. As I leave Ridgewood, I find myself walking past the staff break room where my mother had delivered her ultimatum 8 years ago. The memory still has power, but it no longer dominates me. I've built something from nothing. A career, a home, a life for my son. Whatever the board decides, I've already won the more important battle. Back at my office, I find a message waiting from my father. Need to talk about your mother. Call when you can. I return the call immediately. Dad? What's wrong? She's been asking questions, he says without preamble. About you, about Eli. About what you've been doing all these years. This is unexpected. My mother has rarely shown interest in my life since I left. What brought this on? She's scared, Jessie. Not just about losing her place at Ridgewood. I think seeing you successful, confident shook her. She always predicted you'd struggle. She wanted me to struggle, I correct him. She needed me to fail to justify throwing me out. Maybe, he concedes. Or maybe she was terrified you'd repeat her sister's pattern. I've heard about my Aunt Clara occasionally, my mother's younger sister who got pregnant at 17, dropped out of high school, and spent decades in poverty, moving from one abusive relationship to another. She died of an overdose before I was born. That doesn't excuse what she did, I say firmly. No, it doesn't, Dad agrees. But understanding someone's fears doesn't mean excusing their actions. It just helps make sense of them. After we hang up, I find myself staring at Eli's school photo on my desk. At 7, he's already showing an aptitude for mathematics and music, talents that emerge when children have stability, support, and love. Everything I fought to give him. My phone rings again. Martha Phelps. Jessica? The board is requesting an additional meeting. Tomorrow if possible. There's been a new development. The next day, I return to Ridgewood to find not just the board members, but also representatives from Clarion Development, the company planning to convert the nursing home to luxury condos. Martha explains the situation. Clarion has increased their offer by 15%. It's substantially more than Horizon's bid. James Wilson, Clarion's sleek representative, smiles confidently. We're also offering to cover relocation costs for current residents. 3 months in comparable facilities while they secure permanent arrangements. 3 months, I repeat. And then what? Many of these residents have been here for years. Where will they go when your generous 3 months runs out? That's not really our concern, Wilson says smoothly. But we're confident the board will use part of our substantial offer to establish a transition fund. I turn to the board members, who look uncomfortable but tempted. The additional money would solve a lot of problems for them, not for the residents. May I respond to this revised offer? I ask. Martha nods. I take a deep breath. What I'm about to propose goes beyond my authority at Horizon. It's a gamble that could cost me my job if it fails. Horizon will match Clarion's increased offer, I say firmly. Wilson's smile falters. Your company has already submitted their best offer. You can't just. I can, I interrupt. And I am. Furthermore, we're reducing our projected return on investment from 12% to 9% to accommodate keeping all current residents at their existing rates for 5 years instead of 3. Board member Chun frowns. Ms. Sullivan, with all due respect, has your company authorized these changes? They will, I say with more confidence than I feel. Because I'm also personally investing in this project. The room falls silent. You're what? Martha finally asks. I'm contributing $500,000 of my own capital to establish the Resident Assistance Fund I mentioned yesterday. My heart pounds, but my voice remains steady. This isn't just business for me. It's about preserving community and dignity for people who deserve it. What I don't say. It's about showing my mother that I succeeded not despite having a child young, but because becoming a mother gave me purpose and determination I never knew I possessed. After Clarion's representatives leave, Martha pulls me aside again. That was quite a power move, she says. Will your company really back these revised terms? They will, I say, hoping I'm right. And if they don't, the personal investment stands regardless. I can provide proof of funds by tomorrow. Why would you do this? Put your own money, your career potentially on the line. I consider my answer carefully. Because sometimes business needs to be personal to be done right. That evening, as I help Eli with a science project spread across our dining room table, my phone rings. Richard Keller, my CEO. Jessica, I just got off the phone with Martha Phelps, he says, his voice tight. You changed our offer without authorization. I did, I admit. And I stand by it. You committed company funds without approval. That's grounds for termination. I know. But I also committed my own funds. And the revised projections still show a healthy profit, just over a longer horizon. There's a long pause. Why this facility, Jessica? There are dozens of other acquisition targets in our portfolio. I watch Eli carefully gluing popsicle sticks together, his face a mask of concentration. Because I grew up there. Because I know what it means to be displaced. And because sometimes doing the right thing means taking a stand, even when it's risky. Another pause. The executive committee meets tomorrow morning at 8. Be there to defend your actions. And Jessica? Bring those revised projections. We'll need them. After hanging up, I help Eli finish his project, a model of the solar system with planets made from painted styrofoam balls. As we work, I tell him stories about when I was younger working at Ridgewood after school. Is that where you learned about taking care of people? He asks innocently. Yes, I reply, surprised by his insight. I guess it is. And is that why you want to buy it? To take care of the old people there. I consider how to explain my complicated motivations to a 7-year-old. Partly. It's also about keeping a promise I made to myself a long time ago, that I would build something meaningful, something that helps people. Like you helped me, he says, securing Jupiter onto its wire. Yes, I say, suddenly emotional. Exactly like that. Late that night, after Eli is asleep, I prepare for tomorrow's executive committee meeting. The numbers work, but barely. I'm risking everything on this bid. My savings, my career trajectory, my carefully constructed security. Yet for the first time in years, I feel absolutely certain I'm making the right choice. Not for revenge, not even for vindication, but for something more important. To show my son what it means to stand by your values, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. I fall asleep on the couch, surrounded by spreadsheets and financial projections, dreaming of a teenage girl wheeling laundry carts down long hallways, never imagining where life would take her. The board has accepted Horizon's bid for Ridgewood Nursing Home, Martha announces 3 weeks later, as we finalize the paperwork in the same conference room where I made my presentation. Pending the usual regulatory approvals, ownership will transfer in 60 days. I sign the final document, feeling a strange mix of triumph and apprehension. Against all odds, I've convinced Horizon's executive committee to back my revised offer. I've committed a significant portion of my savings to the Resident Assistance Fund. Now comes the real challenge, transforming Ridgewood while preserving its heart. I'll need complete staff files and resident records, I tell Martha. We want to ensure a seamless transition. Of course, she replies. Though I must say some staff members are nervous. Change is always difficult. I understand. I'm planning to meet with department heads next week to address concerns. I hesitate before asking, has my mother been informed about the sale? Martha's expression softens slightly. All residents received a general notice yesterday. But no, she doesn't know about your involvement specifically. She pauses. Would you like me to tell her? No, I say firmly. That's a conversation I need to have myself. That evening, I arrive at Ridgewood after hours, when visitors are normally leaving. The night supervisor, Caroline, recognizes me immediately. Jessica Sullivan. Martha told me you'd be stopping by. She gives me a warm hug. Or should I call you Ms. Director now? I laugh. Just Jessica is fine, Caroline. You've known me since I was 15. And now look at you. Buying the place. She shakes her head in wonder. Your mother is in her room. Usually watches the news around this time. I thank her and make my way through familiar corridors to room 237. The door is partially open, and I can hear the television inside. A news anchor discussing stock market fluctuations. I knock softly. Come in, my mother calls, her voice sharp with annoyance. If it's about the dinner tray, I already told the aide. She stops when she sees me. Jessica. Hello, Mom. I enter but remain standing near the door. Do you have a few minutes to talk? She mutes the television, her expression guarded. More threats about what you'll do once your company takes over? No threats. I pull a chair closer to her bed and sit down. I came to tell you that the sale is finalized. Horizon Healthcare will take ownership of Ridgewood in 60 days. She presses her lips together. The gesture so familiar it momentarily transports me back to my childhood. I suppose you've come to gloat then? To tell me you'll be raising my rates after all. Actually, I've guaranteed that no current residence rates will increase for at least 5 years. I keep my voice neutral, professional. We're also establishing a resident assistance fund for those facing financial hardship. Confusion flickers across her face. Why would you do that? Because it's the right thing to do. Because these residents deserve stability and dignity. I meet her gaze directly. And because I know what it's like to face housing insecurity. Her eyes drop to her hands, thin and veined against the white blanket. For a moment, neither of us speaks. I'd like to show you something, I finally say, pulling out my tablet. I open a presentation showing the renderings for the renovated Ridgewood. This is what we're planning. Updated facilities, expanded therapy services, a new garden space. She studies the images with a professional eye honed by decades in nursing. The therapy room is too far from the main residential wing. Residents with mobility issues will struggle. Good point, I acknowledge, making a note. We can adjust that in the final plans. We spend the next 20 minutes reviewing the designs, my mother pointing out practical concerns that only someone with her experience would notice. It's the most civil conversation we've had in years, anchored in the professional expertise we both share. As I prepare to leave, she asks abruptly, "Why are you doing this, Jessica?" Truly, I consider my answer carefully. When you kicked me out, I had nothing. No home, no support, no safety net. Just a baby on the way and my own determination. I promised myself then that if I ever had power, I would use it differently than you did. Her face hardens. You think I enjoyed asking you to leave? You think it was easy? I think you made a choice based on fear and rigid principles, without considering alternatives. I reply evenly. I'm making a different choice. And this is your revenge? Showing me what a good person you are now. Her voice is bitter. No, Mom. This isn't about revenge. It's about breaking a cycle. I stand up. I don't want Eli to grow up thinking that power is something you use to hurt people who've hurt you. I want him to see that sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is to help someone who never helped you. As I reach the door, she calls out, "The boy, Eli. He seems well-adjusted." Coming from my mother, this is practically effusive praise. He is. He's incredible, actually. Smart, kind, curious. You must have done some things right, she admits grudgingly. I did everything right, Mom. I correct her, not unkindly. Despite having every reason to fail, I didn't. That's what you never understood. Having Eli didn't ruin my life. It gave me a reason to build something better than I ever would have without him. I leave her with that thought, walking out of Ridgewood with a lightness I haven't felt in years. The conversation wasn't warm or reconciliatory, but it was honest. And sometimes honesty is the foundation you need to build something new. The next few weeks pass in a blur of meetings, planning sessions, and paperwork as we prepare for the ownership transition. I divide my time between my regular duties at Horizon and the special project of Ridgewood, often working late into the evening after Eli has gone to bed. One night, as I review staffing plans at my dining room table, my phone rings. It's my father. "Your mother called me today," he says without preamble. "Oh." I try to keep my voice neutral. "She told me about your plans for Ridgewood. About the Resident Assistance Fund." He pauses. She seemed impressed, though you know she'd never say it directly. "That's something, I guess." "It's more than something, Jessie. In all the years since you left, I've never heard her speak about you without that edge of disappointment in her voice. Today was different. I'm not sure how to respond to this. Part of me, the wounded 19-year-old who still lives somewhere inside, wants to say, too little, too late. But the woman I've become knows that healing is rarely linear or simple. There's something else," Dad continues. "She asked if I had recent pictures of Eli. Said she'd like to see what he looks like now. This catches me off guard." "What did you say?" "I said she should ask you herself." He sighs. "I know it's complicated, Jessie, but she's getting older. These last few years haven't been kind to her health." "I know. And I do know. I've reviewed her medical records as part of the resident assessment. Hypertension, early signs of heart failure, osteoarthritis advancing in her spine." "I'll think about it, Dad." After we hang up, I find myself looking through photos of Eli on my phone. His first day of kindergarten, learning to ride a bike, building sandcastles at the beach last summer. Moments my mother has never shared, by her choice and then by mine. The next day at Ridgewood, I'm reviewing facility layouts with the renovation team when Martha approaches me. "Jessica, do you have a moment? There's an issue with a resident I think you should handle personally." I follow her to the administrative office, already suspecting what this is about. My mother sits in one of the visitors' chairs, her posture rigid despite the slight curve of her spine. Mrs. Sullivan has some concerns about the upcoming renovations. Martha explains diplomatically before excusing herself. I take the seat across from my mother. What can I help with? The East Wing renovations, she says, her voice professionally detached. You're planning to relocate residents during construction. Some of us have specific needs regarding room placement. We've developed individualized transition plans for each resident, I explain. Yours takes into account your preference for a room near the nurse's station and away from the elevator noise. She looks surprised that I remember these details. I see. Is there something specific you're concerned about? I prompt when she doesn't continue. She hesitates, then reaches into her handbag and pulls out a small photo album. I found this when I was sorting through things, preparing for the temporary move. She slides it across the desk. I open it to find pictures of myself as a teenager, many taken here at Ridgewood when I worked part-time. Me in scrubs pushing a medication cart, standing with a group of residents at a holiday party, receiving an award for volunteer hours. I didn't know you kept these, I say quietly. There's something else. She pulls an envelope from her bag and places it beside the album. Your father mentioned you might be willing to share recent photos of Eli. I hear the effort it takes her to say his name. I brought these for you, I say, taking out my tablet and opening my photo gallery. If you'd like to see them. For the next 20 minutes, we look through pictures of Eli's life, his kindergarten graduation, soccer games, piano recitals, Halloween costumes, holiday celebrations. My mother asks occasional questions. Does he enjoy school? Is he still playing piano? Each answer seems to satisfy something in her, though her expression remains guarded. He has your determination, I tell her, showing a photo of Eli practicing piano, his face focused in concentration. Once he decides to learn something, he doesn't give up until he masters it. Like his mother, she says softly, almost to herself. When we finish with the photos, an awkward silence falls between us. Finally, she speaks. I spent years convinced you would fail, she admits. That you'd end up like Clara, trapped in poverty, dependent on others, bitter about opportunities lost. I know. I thought I was protecting you from that fate by forcing you to choose. Her hands tremble slightly in her lap. I never considered that you might succeed where she failed. Because you didn't believe in me, I say, the old hurt rising to the surface. She shakes her head slowly. Because I was terrified for you. I watched Clara destroy her life, watched her children grow up in chaos and instability. The thought of you suffering the same way. She trails off. It was easier to push you away than to watch you struggle. So you made me struggle alone instead. I reply, my voice tight with emotion. Yes. She meets my eyes directly. I was wrong, Jessica. Seeing what you've built, your career, your home, how you've raised your son. I was wrong about what you could accomplish. It's not quite an apology, but from Margaret Sullivan, this admission is monumental. I sit with it for a moment, allowing its weight to settle between us. Would you? She begins, then stops, uncharacteristically hesitant. Would you consider bringing Eli to visit sometime? Properly, not just in the day room. The request surprises me. I'd need to talk to him first. He doesn't know much about our history. Of course. She nods stiffly. Well, that's all I wanted to discuss about the renovations. As I stand to leave, I make a decision. Mom, we're having a small celebration at my house next weekend, for the Ridgewood acquisition. Nothing fancy, just a few colleagues and friends. Eli will be there. I pause. You're welcome to come if you'd like. Dad's coming. Hope flickers across her face before she controls her expression. I'll check my calendar. It's a small step, tentative and fragile. But as I walk out of Ridgewood that day, I realize we're both finally moving forward, not by forgetting the past, but by refusing to let it dictate our future. The day of the small gathering arrives, and I find myself unnecessarily rearranging appetizers on serving platters as Eli bounces around the living room in excited anticipation of guests. Is Grandma really coming? He asks for the third time, peering out the front window. She said she would try, I answer carefully. But remember what we talked about, Grandma and I haven't been close for a long time, so things might feel a little awkward at first. He nods solemnly. That's okay. Ms. Rivera says families are complicated sometimes. I smile at the wisdom of his second-grade teacher. Ms. Rivera is right. Tara and Dave arrive first with their twins, providing welcome distraction as the children immediately head to Eli's room to play. Richard and a few colleagues from Horizon follow, along with Martha Phelps representing the Ridgewood board. My father arrives next, looking slightly uncomfortable in a sport coat. "The place looks great, Jessie," he says, hugging me awkwardly. "You've really done well for yourself." "Thanks, Dad. Eli's been looking forward to seeing you." As my son runs up to greet his grandfather, I catch sight of a taxi pulling up outside. My heart races as I recognize my mother's silhouette in the back seat. Despite our recent conversations, I hadn't fully believed she would come. I meet her at the door. She's dressed formally in a navy blue dress, her white hair neatly styled. She looks smaller somehow, away from the institutional setting of Ridgewood. "I wasn't sure you'd make it," I say, taking her coat. "Neither was I," she admits. Her eyes scan the entryway of my home, the framed photos on the wall, the children's artwork displayed alongside professional certificates, the obvious signs of a stable, successful life. "Your home is lovely," she says stiffly, as though the compliment costs her something. "Thank you. Come meet everyone." I lead her into the living room where conversations pause momentarily as people notice her arrival. My father approaches first. "Hello, Margaret. You're looking well." "Charles." She nods coolly. "I see you still can't tie a proper Windsor knot." He chuckles, the tension between them familiar rather than hostile after years of divorce. "Some things never change." I introduce her to my colleagues, watching as she slides effortlessly into her role as a retired nursing director, discussing healthcare policy and facility management with professional authority. It's a side of her I remember from childhood, competent, respected, in command of her expertise. Eli approaches cautiously, standing at my side. "Mom, is that Grandma?" "Yes, sweetie. Would you like to say hello?" My mother turns at the sound of his voice, and for a brief moment, her professional mask slips. She studies him with undisguised interest, perhaps seeing echoes of me at his age. "Hello, Eli," she says, her voice softer than I've heard it in years. "I'm your grandmother." "Hi," he replies, extending his hand formally. "It's nice to meet you properly. Mom said you take care of old people." "I used to," she corrects him. "Now I'm retired." "What's your favorite thing about being retired?" he asks with a child's directness. The question seems to catch her off guard. I have more time to read now," she finally says. "Me too. I love reading." Mom says I get that from her. "Do you like Harry Potter?" As they begin a surprisingly animated discussion about children's literature, I excuse myself to check on the food. In the kitchen, Tara finds me leaning against the counter, taking deep breaths. "How are you holding up?" she asks, squeezing my arm. "It's surreal," I admit. Having her here in my home, talking to Eli like a normal grandmother. "After everything. You've come a long way from that terrified pregnant girl on my couch," Tara says. "You should be proud of yourself." I am. It's just, I struggle to articulate the complex emotions swirling within me. Part of me is still waiting for her to say something cutting, to remind me of all the ways she thought I would fail. And if she does, I consider this, then I'll handle it. But I don't think she will, not today. She seems different. The gathering continues smoothly, with conversations flowing between professional discussions of the Ridgewood acquisition and more personal topics. My mother remains mostly reserved but engages politely with everyone. I notice her watching me throughout the evening, observing how I interact with colleagues, how I parent Eli, how I've created this life she never believed possible. After dessert, as guests begin to depart, I find her standing in my home office, examining my framed degrees and professional certifications. Boston University. She reads from my master's degree in healthcare administration. "You went back." "Night classes while working full-time," I confirm. "It took 3 years instead of 2, but I finished." "And Eli was how old then?" 2 when I started, 5 when I finished." She shakes her head slightly. "I don't know how you managed it all." "Neither do I sometimes, I admit. But I had help. Tara and Dave watched Eli many nights. I found good daycares. I made it work. Without me," she says, and I hear regret in her voice for the first time. "Yes," I say simply. "Without you." She turns to face me fully. I've been thinking about what you said at Ridgewood about breaking cycles, about using power differently than I did. She pauses. You've succeeded where I failed, Jessica. Not just professionally, but as a mother. The admission stuns me into silence. I was so afraid of you repeating Clara's mistakes that I pushed you away instead of helping you avoid them, she continues. I convinced myself I was being strong, making the hard choice. But watching you today, the life you've built, how you are with Eli, I realized I was the one who was weak. Mom, let me finish, she interrupts. I was wrong, Jessica. Not just about what you could accomplish, but about what you needed from me. And I'm sorry. The words I never expected to hear hang in the air between us. 8 years of hurt and anger don't disappear in an instant, but something shifts inside me, a knot of resentment beginning to loosen. I don't know if we can ever have a normal mother-daughter relationship, I say honestly. Too much has happened. I understand, she nods, her expression resigned. But, I continue, we could try something new. For Eli's sake and maybe for our own. Hope flickers in her eyes. I'd like that. Later, after all the guests have left except my parents, I find Eli showing his grandfather his science project in the living room while my mother watches from the couch, her posture slightly more relaxed than earlier. It's getting late, I say. Dad, are you okay to drive Mom back to Ridgewood? Actually, my father says, glancing at my mother, your mother and I were talking. The renovations at Ridgewood start next week, and residents need temporary housing. I have that spare room since Lisa moved out. I look between them, surprised. You're going to stay with Dad during the renovations? My mother straightens her shoulders defensively. It's a practical solution. And Charles lives closer to Eli's school, so if I were to visit occasionally. The implication is clear. She wants to try being a grandmother. Not to make up for the past, but to create something new for the future. That sounds like a good arrangement, I say carefully. Eli would like that, I think. As they prepare to leave, my mother pauses at the door. The resident assistance fund you established at Ridgewood, the board mentioned you contributed personally. I did. Why? She asks simply. Because 8 years ago, I knew what it was like to face an uncertain future with nowhere to go. I reply. I don't want anyone to feel that way if I can help prevent it. She nods slowly, understanding the implicit message. Then she does something she hasn't done in nearly a decade. She reaches out and squeezes my hand briefly. You've built something remarkable, Jessica, she says quietly. Not just your career or this home, but who you've become. That takes real strength. Coming from Margaret Sullivan, it's as close to a benediction as I'll ever receive. As I watch her and my father drive away, I feel a sense of closure that has eluded me for years. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance of our complicated history, of the pain we've caused each other, and of the possibility that something new might grow from the ashes of what was lost. 1 year later, I stand in the newly renovated garden courtyard of Ridgewood Elder Community, the facility's updated name reflecting its expanded mission. Spring sunlight filters through young maple trees, highlighting the colorful flower beds where residents and community volunteers work side by side. The sensory garden was an inspired addition, Martha says, joining me on the stone pathway. Now serving as Ridgewood's community liaison rather than board chair, she's embraced the facility's transformation. The memory care residents especially enjoy the herb section. That was Eli's suggestion, actually. I tell her with pride. He remembered reading that scent is strongly connected to memory. Across the courtyard, my son kneels beside an elderly resident, carefully planting marigolds in a raised bed. At 8, he's become a regular visitor at Ridgewood, developing unexpected friendships with several residents who delight in his energy and curiosity. How's your mother settling into her new apartment? Martha asks. Better than expected, I reply. She was skeptical about moving to the independent living wing, but she's actually thriving with the balance of privacy and community. After staying with my father during the renovations, an arrangement that evolved from temporary convenience to a cautious rekindling of their relationship, my mother had initially planned to return to her old room at Ridgewood. But as the renovations progressed, creating a new independent living section with small apartments for seniors who needed minimal assistance, I suggested she might prefer the greater autonomy. To my surprise, she agreed, gradually embracing the opportunity to maintain her independence, while remaining part of the Ridgewood community she'd been connected to for decades. Our relationship remains a work in progress, complex, sometimes strained but evolving. We may never fully heal the wounds of the past, but we've found a way to move forward, connected by our shared love for Eli and our mutual commitment to Ridgewood's success. Ms. Sullivan? A young nurse approaches. The new residents are assembled in the community room for your presentation. I thank her and make my way inside, stopping to collect Eli. Ready to help me with the big announcement? I ask him. He nods eagerly. Is Grandma already inside? Probably. You know how she likes to be early for everything. Inside the community room, chairs have been arranged facing a small podium. The space is filled with current residents, new residents from the independent living wing, staff members, and representatives from local senior advocacy groups. My mother sits in the front row beside my father, both dressed formally for the occasion. As Director of Elder Services for Horizon Healthcare's New England region, I've overseen Ridgewood's transformation from a struggling nursing home to a comprehensive elder care community that has become a model for our other facilities. Today marks the official opening of our newest initiative. I approach the podium, Eli standing proudly at my side. Welcome, everyone. Today we celebrate not just the completion of Ridgewood's renovations, but the launch of our Community Care Continuum program. I outline the new program, a comprehensive approach to elder care that includes not only the physical facility improvements but also expanded community services, from adult day programs to home care options that allow seniors to age in place when possible. The cornerstone of this initiative is our affordability commitment. I continue. Thanks to our unique funding model combining private investments, community partnerships, and targeted grants, we're able to offer sliding scale rates based on financial need. What I don't mention explicitly is how much of my own bonus from Horizon's expanded elder care division I've contributed to the endowment fund that makes this possible, a decision that felt right from the moment I made it. None of this would be possible without the insights of those who understand elder care from multiple perspectives, I add. Which is why I'm pleased to announce the formation of Ridgewood's Resident Advisory Council, chaired by Margaret Sullivan. My mother looks up sharply, surprise evident on her face. We had discussed her joining the council, but not leading it. Her expertise as a former nursing director makes her uniquely qualified, but the position also acknowledges something more important. Her voice matters here. After concluding my presentation and answering questions, I find her waiting at the edge of the room, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. You didn't tell me about the chairperson position, she says. I wanted it to be a surprise, I reply. The council needs someone who understands both the administrative and care aspects of what we do. Someone who won't be afraid to speak up when they see problems. A hint of a smile touches her lips. I've never been accused of keeping my opinions to myself. Exactly why you're perfect for the role. I pause. Are you okay with it? She straightens her shoulders in that familiar way that signals she's accepting a challenge. I believe I can make a valuable contribution. My father joins us, Eli at his side. Congratulations, Margaret. I always said they couldn't find anyone who cares more about doing things the right way. Thank you, Charles. She turns to Eli. And what did you think of your mother's presentation? It was good but kind of long, he says with characteristic honesty, making us all laugh. As we walk through the facility toward the reception in the dining hall, I notice how staff members greet my mother with genuine respect, not just as the former nursing director or as my mother, but as someone whose knowledge they value. The afternoon passes pleasantly, with residents and community members mingling in the renovated spaces. I find myself on the new patio outside the dining hall, taking a moment alone to absorb everything that's happened in the past year. My mother joins me, 2 cups of coffee in hand. She offers one to me silently, and we stand side by side, looking out at the grounds where new pathways connect the various wings of the expanded facility. I never imagined this, she says finally. When I heard your company was buying Ridgewood, I thought it was the end of everything I'd worked for. And now I see it was actually the beginning of something better. She sips her coffee. You've transformed this place, Jessica. Not just the buildings but the entire approach to care. I had good teachers, I reply. Including you. She looks at me with surprise. You taught me attention to detail, thoroughness, professional standards. I explain. Even when we were at odds personally, I never doubted your commitment to proper care. She absorbs this, nodding slowly. And I taught you what not to do as a mother. That too, I acknowledge quietly. We stand in companionable silence for a moment before she speaks again. I received the invitation to Eli's birthday party next month. He really wants you to come. I tell her. He's been planning where to put you in the group photo. The past year has seen a gradual strengthening of their relationship. Weekly dinners at my father's house, occasional outings to museums or parks, phone calls where my mother listens with surprising patience to Eli's elaborate stories about school and friends. She will never be a conventional grandmother. Warmth and demonstrative affection don't come naturally to her. But she's finding her own way to build a relationship with him. I'll be there, she promises. Then, after a hesitation, Jessica, I want you to know. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. With Ridgewood, with your career. With Eli. The words I once desperately wanted to hear now bring unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, Mom. Later that evening, as Eli and I drive home from Ridgewood, he asks thoughtfully, Mom, are you and Grandma friends now? I consider his question carefully. Not exactly friends. But we're family, and we're finding better ways to be family than we had before. Because you bought her nursing home? He asks with a child's directness. I laugh softly. That was part of it. But mostly because we both decided some things are more important than old hurts. Like me, he asks hopefully. Especially you, I confirm, reaching back to squeeze his knee. You're the future, and that's where we're all trying to look now. As we pull into our driveway, I reflect on the journey that brought us here. From that terrifying day when my mother told me to leave, through years of struggle and determination, to this moment of peace that once seemed impossible. I didn't just survive being kicked out while pregnant. I built something meaningful from that painful beginning. A career that helps others, a home filled with love for my son, and eventually, a way back to some form of relationship with the mother who once turned me away. Not for revenge. Not even for vindication, though that has come in its own way. But for healing. For breaking cycles. For showing my son that sometimes the strongest response to pain isn't to inflict it on others, but to transform it into something that helps and heals. As Eli runs ahead to unlock our front door, I take a moment to appreciate everything this journey has given me. Not despite the obstacles, but because overcoming them revealed strengths I never knew I possessed. Some might call it revenge success. I simply call it life, complicated, challenging, and ultimately more rewarding than I could have imagined on that day when everything seemed to be ending, but was actually just beginning.